The chains were heavy on his wrists, the sound of iron dragging against the crystal floor echoed in the silent hall. The human soldier, bruised and exhausted, was pushed forward by alien guards. Their armor glowed with blue light, their eyes, sharp and cold. He stumbled but refused to fall. The throne room was vast, shining with silver pillars and banners of alien script. Dozens of nobles filled the sides, their faces painted with disgust. For them, a human was nothing but dirt, nothing but a savage creature from a weaker world. Yet today that human stood in front of their princess. The princess sat tall on her throne, her long silver hair glowing under the light of the chamber. Her eyes, golden and bright, studied the human with strange curiosity. She did not look at him like the others did. She looked deeper, as if searching for something only she could see. The court was silent, waiting for her command. Everyone expected one word: execution. They wanted to see his head fall, to watch his blood stain the floor. The human knew it too. He lifted his chin, refusing to beg. If this was his end, he would meet it with dignity. But then, the silence was broken. Not by the sound of a blade, not by the order of death. Instead, the princess leaned forward, her soft voice ringing louder than any cry. "You're taking me as your wife?" "Really?" The words struck the chamber. Like thunder, gasps filled the air. Nobles rose from their seats shouting. Guards looked at each other in shock. Did the princess just propose to a human, an enemy? The human froze. His heart pounded in his chest. Had he heard her correctly? His eyes locked on hers, searching for a trick, but her expression was calm, serious, and strangely determined. One of the elders stepped forward, his voice shaking with anger. "Your Highness, this is madness. He is our prisoner, a soldier of the enemy. You cannot—" "Silence," the princess commanded. Her voice carried a sharpness that cut through the hall. "It is my choice, and my right." The elder trembled, bowing his head, but his eyes burned with rage. The rest of the court whispered like a storm, rumors spreading faster than light. The human shook his head slowly, his voice hoarse from days without water. "What are you playing at? You want to mock me before my death?" Her eyes softened for a moment as if she felt his pain. She leaned closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "This is no game, human, I am serious." The chains on his hands tightened as the guards pulled him back, but she raised her hand, stopping them instantly. All eyes were now on the human. He could feel the weight of the entire court pressing against him, waiting for his reaction. He searched her face, trying to understand. Why him? Why here? Why now? He was nothing but a broken soldier, a defeated man from a world they hated. And yet here was their princess, an untouchable royal, claiming him as her future husband. Whispers grew louder, some voices trembling with fear, others with fury. If she binds herself to him, the royal blood will be tainted. She shames us all. This cannot be allowed. But the princess did not move. Her golden eyes never left the humans, her face calm, her lips firm as if daring anyone to challenge her. The human swallowed hard, his throat dry, his mind racing. He wanted to laugh at the absurdity. He wanted to scream at the insanity. But deep inside, a flicker of something else. Stirred fear, curiosity, maybe even hope. "What do you gain by this?" He whispered, his voice shaking. "Why me?" Her answer was a smile, small but filled with secrets. "Because only you can save me," she said softly. The court did not hear those words. They only saw the princess standing from her throne, lifting her hand and declaring to all, "This man is mine, and I will take him as my husband." Chaos exploded in the hall. Nobles shouted, guards hesitated, and elders begged her to stop. But her voice cut through them all. Strong and unshaken, the human's heart raced. He stood in chains, powerless, surrounded by enemies. Yet in that moment, everything changed. He was no longer just a prisoner. He was a chosen man in a dangerous game he did not understand. And deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. The uproar from the throne room still echoed through the palace walls. The human was dragged through golden corridors, his wrists still chained, guards whispering in disbelief. They looked at him with hatred but also with confusion. How could their princess, daughter of the royal blood, choose a human enemy as her husband? He was thrown into a lavish chamber instead of a prison cell. The floor was soft, the walls carved with glowing patterns. Food and water were placed before him, things no prisoner had ever received. He sat on the bed, breathing hard, still trying to understand what had just happened. Why would she do this? Why him? The door opened and she entered. The alien princess stepped inside, her golden eyes glowing softly in the dim light. Her royal robes flowed behind her, but she dismissed the guards with a wave. The door shut, leaving only the two of them for a long moment. She said nothing. She simply looked at him, her gaze sharp but calm. He glared back, refusing to bow his head. "You made a scene," he said bitterly. "You made me look like a fool before everyone." Her lips curved slightly, not in mockery, but in something closer to relief. "You are not a fool," she whispered. "You are my only chance." He frowned, his voice rough. "Chance for what? You said I would be your husband. Why? What game are you playing?" She stepped closer, her voice low but firm. "My people think I am strong. They think I control the throne. But they are wrong. I am trapped, human. If I don't bind myself to someone outside their reach, I will be forced into a marriage I cannot escape." Her words cut into him like a blade. He stared at her, unsure if she spoke the truth or if this was another trick. "So you chose me? A prisoner in chains? Why, not one of your guards, or a noble from your own court?" Her eyes darkened and her hands clenched at her side. "Because they would use me. They would control me. They would break me," she said with a trembling breath. "But you hate them as much as I do. That makes you dangerous to them, and safe for me." He laughed bitterly, shaking his head. "Safe? You call this safe? I am one step away from execution, and you expect me to play along with your madness?" She didn't flinch. Instead, she sat across from him, her golden eyes never leaving his. "You think I chose you because I am desperate," she said softly. "But you don't see the whole truth." He leaned back, crossing his arms, his chains rattling. "Then tell me, princess, what is this truth?" Her voice dropped lower, almost a whisper. "There is a plan to kill me." The human's eyes widened, but before he could speak, she continued. "My enemies hide inside this palace. They want me gone. They want me replaced. And if I die, my people will fall into war." Her voice shook, but her eyes stayed firm. "I needed someone no one could predict, someone no one could control, and that person is you." The human's chest tightened. He remembered the chaos in the throne room, the fury of the nobles, the sharp glares of the elders. They wanted her gone, and they hated him. Maybe she was telling the truth. Maybe she really was trapped in her own golden cage. But still, he could not trust her so easily. "And what if I refuse?" he asked coldly. "What if I decide I want no part of your plan?" She looked at him with a calm that sent a chill through his body. "Then they will kill you," she said simply, "and me as well." The room fell silent. The flicker of the glowing walls reflected in her golden eyes. He saw no lies there, only fear hidden behind strength. She reached out, gently touching the broken chains on his wrist. "You may think I chained you to me," she whispered, "but in truth I am the one chained to you now." The human's breath caught. His heart pounded with confusion. She was powerful, royal, untouchable. Yet in this moment she looked fragile, almost human. He wanted to pull away, to laugh at her words, but something in her voice made him pause. "What exactly do you want from me?" he asked at last. Her answer was sharp and clear. "Stand beside me, pretend to be my husband, protect me until the danger is gone." He narrowed his eyes. "And in return?" She leaned closer, her golden eyes burning with a strange fire. "In return, I will give you something no human has ever had. Freedom, power, and a place beside me in the throne." The promise hung in the air like a spark waiting to ignite. The human's heart raced, torn between mistrust and temptation. She stood, her voice calm but final. Decide quickly, human, because tomorrow the court will test us both, and—" With that she turned and left, the door closing behind her. The human sat in silence, the weight of her words crushing him. He was no longer just a prisoner. He was part of a dangerous secret, a plan that could either save her life or destroy them both. The next morning, the human woke to the sound of horns echoing through the palace halls. Guards entered the chamber without a word, their faces cold, their armor shining. They pulled him up, his chains rattling, and led him toward the throne room once again he had barely slept. The princess's words haunted him all night. "There is a plan to kill me. Pretend to be my husband, protect me until the danger is gone." He wanted to believe she was lying, but something in her eyes told him otherwise. Still, he could not understand why she had chosen him. A human prisoner. The throne room was more crowded than before. Nobles filled every corner, priests of the royal temple stood in rows, and even soldiers lined the walls. The air was heavy with tension. The human felt all eyes burning into him. He was the outsider, the enemy, the unwanted. The princess entered, dressed in golden armor instead of royal robes. Her long silver hair tied back, her eyes sharp and commanding. She walked with grace. But the human noticed how tightly her fists were clenched. An elder priest stepped forward, his voice deep and echoing. "By the ancient laws of our people, a marriage bond cannot be spoken lightly. Once declared before the court, it must be tested. The chosen one must prove himself worthy, or both shall suffer the punishment of false oath." The human's stomach turned. He had heard of alien rituals, but never of this punishment for false oath. That could only mean death. The princess raised her chin proudly. "I have chosen," she said, her voice steady, "and I will not take my words back." The nobles hissed, their whispers like poison in the air. Some demanded the trial begin. At once others shouted for the human's execution without delay. The elder priest ignored them. He turned his piercing gaze on the human. "Do you, human, accept this bond? Do you accept the law of our people, to stand beside her as chosen?"
"Mate?"
The human's heart pounded in his chest. His mouth went dry. He wanted to scream no. He wanted to break free and run. But the princess's words returned to him. "Decide quickly. Tomorrow the court will test us both." He looked at her, searching her golden eyes. She stood still, unblinking, as if daring him to refuse, but behind her fire, he saw a flicker of fear. Slowly, he nodded. "I accept," he said hoarsely. The hall erupted. Some shouted in outrage. Others laughed at the foolish human. But the priest lifted his hand, silencing them all. "Then let the law decide," the priest intoned. "Let the bond be tested by fire and blood." The human's chest tightened. Fire and blood? What did that mean? Two guards pulled him forward, unlocking his chains but not freeing him. Instead, they placed strange, glowing cuffs on his wrists. The princess stepped beside him, her hands bound the same way. The elder raised a crystal staff, high, and a circle of light formed on the floor, glowing symbols spreading outward. "By ancient custom you will stand together in trial," he declared. "If your bond is false, the fire will consume you both. If it is true, you will survive. Your fates are one." The human stared in disbelief. He was being forced into a deadly ritual with no escape. The circle flared, heat rising from the floor. Flames erupted around them, climbing higher and higher until they stood in a ring of fire. The nobles cheered, eager to see the human burn. The human gritted his teeth, sweat dripping down his brow. The heat pressed against his skin. His instinct screamed to run, but there was nowhere to go. He looked at the princess. She stood firm, her golden eyes locked on his. "Do not break," she whispered, her voice calm despite the fire. "If you break, we both die." The flames roared higher, pressing closer. His body trembled, pain burning across his skin. He felt the fire reaching for him, ready to consume. His legs nearly buckled. But then, he felt her hand. She had slipped her fingers into his. Her grip was strong, steady. Her eyes never looked away. Something inside him shifted. The fire still burned, but her presence gave him strength. His fear began to fade, replaced by something else. Resolve. He squeezed her hand back, refusing to fall. I won't break, he said through clenched teeth. The fire surged one last time, then suddenly collapsed. The circle of light vanished, leaving only smoke and silence. The hall was still. The nobles stared in shock. The priest lowered his staff, his face unreadable. The bond has held, he said slowly. The fire did not take them. By law, their union is true. A wave of outrage swept through the nobles. Shouts of protest filled the air. Some demanded another trial. Others screamed of corruption. But the priest's word was final. The law could not be denied. The princess stood tall, her hand still locked in the human's. Her voice rang clear. You see now, she declared. The bond cannot be broken. He is mine, and I am his. The human stared at her, his chest heaving. He had just survived fire and death beside her. He did not know what bound them, desperation, fate, or something deeper. But one thing was clear. He was no longer just her prisoner. He was her husband by royal law, and in that moment, he realized his life would never be the same again. The trial of fire had ended, but peace did not follow. The nobles left the throne room in anger, their whispers like knives. The human could feel their hatred pressing down on him, heavier than any chain. Though the law had bound him to the princess, the court would never accept it. He was escorted back to the golden chamber, but this time without chains. The glowing cuffs had been removed. His wrists were free. Yet freedom felt like an illusion. The palace walls were nothing less than a prison painted with silver. The princess entered soon after, her golden eyes calm, but her lips tight with worry. You survived, she said softly. I knew you would. He let out a bitter laugh. Survived? You call standing in fire survival? I call it madness. But before he could say more, her face turned serious. They will not stop, human. The nobles wanted you dead in that circle, and now they will try another way. Her voice dropped lower. They will try to kill you. And me? The words hung heavy in the air. He studied her face. She was not afraid for herself. She was afraid for him. It was strange. He was her enemy, her supposed husband by law only. And yet she looked at him as if his life mattered. That night, the human lay awake. The chamber was quiet, but his instincts sharpened. He had fought in wars, lived in trenches, slept under fire. He knew when danger was near, and now he felt it crawling in the air like smoke before a storm. The door creaked. Soft footsteps entered, shadows moving against the glowing walls. The human rolled off the bed just as a blade slashed down where he had been. The spark of steel against stone filled the room. 3 assassins stood there, cloaked in dark armor. Their eyes glowed red beneath their hoods. They moved fast, too fast for normal guards. One lunged, another circled behind. The third raised a strange device glowing with blue energy. The human ducked, grabbed a chair, and swung it hard, smashing the weapon from the assassin's hand. He felt his body scream with exhaustion, but adrenaline burned through him. Another blade cut across his arm. Pain searing, but he refused to fall. Guards! The princess's voice rang out. The door burst open, soldiers storming inside, but it was too late. The assassins had vanished into smoke, disappearing like ghosts, leaving only the stench of burning metal behind. The princess ran to him, her golden hair loose from sleep. You're hurt, she cried, grabbing his arm. Blood dripped down, but he shook his head. I've had worse, he muttered, though his face was pale. She tore part of her robe and pressed it against the wound. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from anger. They dared to enter my chambers, she whispered, fury blazing in her voice. This was no random strike, it was planned. It was meant to test you. To test us. The human leaned back, breathing hard. Seems your enemies don't like me as your husband, he said dryly. Her eyes lifted to meet his, sharp and determined. No, they hate you. But that is why you must stay alive. Without you, the law will collapse, and if that happen, I will have nothing to shield me. The human studied her for a long moment. In the fire trial, she had been his strength. Now he saw her weakness, her isolation. She was surrounded by enemies hidden in shadows, and he was the only one she trusted. "You chose me for protection," he said slowly. "Not because you wanted me, but because you needed me." Her eyes softened. "Perhaps, but need can become something more," she whispered. Before he could respond, a guard rushed in, his face pale. "Your Highness, the Council demands your presence at dawn. They say your choice has brought danger to the palace. They wish to reconsider the bond." The princess's face hardened. "They want to break the law," she hissed. The human clenched his fists. "And if they succeed?" Her golden eyes turned toward him, fierce and unyielding. "Then they will kill you first," she said. "And after that, me." The human fell silent. He had thought himself a prisoner caught in alien politics, but now he understood. He was a piece in a deadly game, one where every move was watched, one where failure meant death. That night, as the palace settled, back into uneasy quiet, the human lay awake again, his wound burning. The shadows seemed darker, the silence sharper. He knew the assassins would come again, and next time, they would not fail. The council chamber was filled with firelight, shadows dancing across the tall walls. The human stood beside the princess, his wounded arm still wrapped in cloth, his body aching but his eyes sharp. Dozens of nobles sat in, a half-circle, their robes shimmering with power, their eyes filled with rage. They did not see him as a husband. They saw him as a threat. One elder rose, his voice dripping with venom. "Your Highness, this is unacceptable. You bring shame to the royal blood. You endanger us all by binding yourself to a human." The crowd murmured in agreement, their whispers a wave of hate. The princess stood tall, her golden eyes burning like fire. "The law was tested," she said firmly. "The bond held. You cannot undo what is sealed by fire and blood." Another noble spat on the floor, glaring at the human. "He is weak, he is unworthy. A creature of dirt and broken worlds, he cannot protect you." The human clenched his fists, his jaw tight. He wanted to speak, to shout back, but the princess raised her hand, silencing him. She stepped forward, her voice like steel. "You say he is weak? Then test him again. Put him against your best warrior. Let the court see who stands." The chamber erupted in gasps. The human's heart skipped a beat. "Wait," he hissed under his breath. "You're throwing me into a fight?" She glanced at him, her eyes sharp, her voice low. "Better to fight once and prove your worth than to be hunted in the shadows forever." The challenge was accepted without hesitation. By dusk, the arena was prepared, a massive circle of stone, torches burning high, thousands of eyes watching from the seats above. The human was dragged into the center, his wound still sore, his body unarmed. Across from him stood a towering alien warrior, twice his size, his armor heavy, his blade glowing with deadly energy. The crowd roared, hungry for blood. The human's throat tightened. He had fought before, against soldiers, against machines, against war, but this was different. Here, he was alone with no weapon, no allies, just the eyes of the entire empire waiting for his death. The warrior raised his blade, the ground trembling under his steps. The human whispered under his breath, "So this is it." But then his eyes lifted to the stands, to the princess. She was watching him, her hands clenched, her golden eyes locked on his. No fear, no doubt, only faith. Something sparked inside him. He had seen men fall when fear claimed them, but he had also seen men rise when someone believed in them. And now, she believed in him. The fight began with a roar. The alien warrior swung his blade, the strike fast and heavy. The human dove to the side, the blade slamming into the stone where he had stood, sparks flying. The crowd laughed, mocking him, calling him a coward. But he did not care, he was alive. The warrior charged again. The human grabbed a broken spear from the ground, rolling to his feet. His arms burned with pain, but he raised the weapon anyway, his eyes sharp. When the alien swung, again the human twisted, driving the broken spear into a gap in the armor. The warrior stumbled, blood spraying, gasps erupted from the crowd. The human did not stop. He leapt forward, grabbing the alien's own blade with both hands. It was heavy, but his fury gave him strength. With a roar, he swung, cutting across the alien's chest, sending the warrior crashing to the ground. Silence fell, broken only by the sound of the human's ragged breathing. He stood in the center of the arena, blood dripping, his body trembling, but he was alive and his enemy was not. The nobles were speechless, their mouths open, their eyes wide. The princess rose from her seat, her voice carrying across the arena. "You called him weak," she shouted, "but he fought with nothing and stood against your strongest. If he is unworthy, then none of you are worthy to stand beside me." The crowd erupted. Some shouted in anger, others cheered, but none could deny the truth. The human had won. He was no longer just a prisoner. He was a warrior. As the guards pulled him from the arena, his body nearly collapsing from exhaustion, the princess rushed to his side. "You did it," she whispered, pressing her hand against his chest. "You showed them your heart." He smirked weakly, his voice rough. "Didn't do it for them," he muttered. "Did it because you needed me." Her eyes softened, her hand lingering on his. "You are more than I thought, human," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You are not my shield anymore. You are my strength." For the first time, the human felt something shift inside him. He was not fighting just for survival anymore. He was fighting for her, and as the arena roared with noise behind them, both of them knew. This was no longer a game of law or duty. This was war, and their hearts had chosen their side. The arena victory had shaken the empire. The human's name spread through the palace halls like wildfire. Some whispered he was blessed by fate. Others spat that he was a curse. But all agreed on one thing: he could no longer be ignored. The princess, however, was not celebrating. She knew the nobles would not stop. If the trial of fire and the duel in the arena could not break the bond, then her enemies would turn to something darker, something final. That night, as the human rested with wounds still fresh, she stood at the palace balcony, staring at the twin moons. Her golden eyes glimmered with worry. "This is only the beginning," she whispered. "The storm is coming." And the storm arrived faster than either of them expected. Just before dawn, the palace shook with thunderous blasts. The sound of horns and clashing steel filled the air. The human jolted awake, grabbing the nearest weapon, a short alien blade left behind in his chamber. The doors burst open, guards rushing inside, their faces pale. "Your Highness," one shouted, "the palace is under attack. The council has declared a coup." The princess's heart froze. She had expected betrayal, but not so soon. "They're coming for me," she said, her voice sharp, "and they'll kill him first." Her eyes flicked to the human, who stood ready, his grip firm despite his exhaustion. "Where do we go?" he demanded. "To the crown chamber," she answered. "If I can reach the throne's seal, I can call the loyal armies to defend us." The halls were chaos. Shadows raced across the walls. Steel rang against steel. Servants screamed and ran. Guards clashed with armored rebels. Blood already stained the marble floors. The human and princess ran together, their steps pounding against stone. Twice assassins leapt from corners, blades flashing. Twice the human cut them down, his movements fast and furious. He bled from new wounds, but his eyes never left hers. At last they reached the grand doors of the crown chamber. But before they could enter, a group of armored nobles blocked their path. Their leader, tall and cruel, sneered at them. "You think a human can stand at her side? You think law can bind us? No, tonight the crown falls and both of you die." The rebels charged, blades raised. The human met them head-on, his body screaming with pain but his spirit burning with fury. He fought with everything he had, each strike heavy, each dodge desperate. One noble slashed across his chest, another drove him to his knees. But before the killing blow could land, the princess herself drew a hidden blade, golden light flashing as she cut the attacker down. Her people gasped from the shadows. Their princess, fighting with her own hands, side by side with a human. Together, they carved a path through the enemy, back to back, blood staining their clothes. When at last the last noble fell, both of them stood panting, their bodies trembling, their eyes burning with the same fire. The crown chamber doors groaned open. The princess rushed to the ancient seal, a massive crystal throne glowing faintly with blue light. She pressed her hand against it, the crown of her people rising from the stone. The chamber shook, light flooding the hall. The rightful heir calls, her voice thundered, echoing through the palace walls. To all loyal warriors, to all who honor the blood of kings rise. Defend your throne! From across the empire, loyal soldiers answered. The palace itself seemed to roar as horns blasted, armies moving to crush the coup. But even as her voice carried, the human staggered, falling against the throne. Blood poured from his wounds, his vision blurred. The princess dropped to his side, catching him before he fell. No, she whispered fiercely. Don't you dare leave me now. His lips curved into a weak smile. Still, not bad. For a prisoner, he muttered, his voice faint. Tears stung her golden eyes. She pressed her forehead against his. You are not my prisoner, she whispered, her voice breaking. You are my warrior, my heart. Outside the battle raged, but inside the chamber, in the glow of the ancient crown, a bond stronger than law and fire was being forged. The human's eyes flickered, fighting to stay open. He wanted to answer her, to tell her what burned in his chest, but darkness pulled at him, and as his body went limp in her arms, she clutched him tighter, her voice trembling with rage and love. If you die, human, I swear I will burn this empire to the ground. The palace was silent after the battle. The fires of rebellion had been crushed, the cries of traitors silenced. But inside the crown chamber, silence was broken only by the shallow breaths of the human lying in the princess's arms. His wounds were deep, his skin pale, blood soaking through his clothes. The princess pressed her trembling hands against his chest, trying to stop the flow. Her golden eyes burned with tears, her heart hammering in fear. Stay with me, she whispered, her voice breaking. Please, human, don't leave me now. He stirred faintly, his lips parting. You should have chosen someone else, he rasped, his voice weak. Someone stronger. Not me. She shook her head violently, her silver hair falling across his face. No, she said fiercely. Not anyone else. I chose you because only you stand when others fall. I chose you because you see me, not the crown, not the throne. Me. Her words cut through his fading haze. For the first time in his life, someone looked at him not as an enemy, not as a soldier, not as a prisoner, but as a man. He forced a small laugh, bitter and soft. And here I thought, you were just saving yourself. Her tears fell against his cheek. Maybe I was at first, she whispered. But now, it is more. You are not my shield anymore. You are my heart. Outside the chamber, loyal soldiers poured in, kneeling before their victorious princess, but she ignored them all. Her world narrowed only to the man in her arms. Bring a healer, she commanded, her voice sharp with authority. They rushed, bringing strange glowing medicines, pouring energy into his wounds. The human groaned as the pain surged, but he clung to consciousness, his hand tightening weakly around hers. Hours passed before the healers stepped back, their faces grave but hopeful. He will live, one whispered, but only if his will holds. The princess never let go of his hand. When night fell, she carried him herself to the palace balcony, refusing to let servants touch him. She laid him on soft cushions beneath the stars, the twin moons casting silver light across his battered body. He opened his eyes weakly, seeing the endless night, sky above him. Beautiful, he murmured. She leaned closer, smiling faintly through her tears. The stars? Or me? His lips curved into a tired smirk. Both, he whispered. She laughed softly, though her chest ached with fear. Human, she said gently. Our bond was forged in fire, tested in blood, sealed by law. But I do not care about law anymore. Her golden eyes softened, glowing like the stars above them. I want you, not because I must, but because I choose. Not as a prisoner, not as a protector, but as my equal, my partner. He swallowed hard, his voice shaking. You're serious, aren't you? A princess? And a broken soldier like me? Her hand cupped his face, her touch warm against his cold skin. You are not broken, she whispered. You are the strongest man I have ever known. For a long moment, silence stretched between them. The stars shimmered above, the air filled with the scent of smoke and night flowers. The human's heart pounded, his body weak, but his spirit alive. He tightened his grip on her hand, his eyes meeting hers. Then hear me, he said slowly, his voice rough but steady. If I stand at your side, it won't be as your prisoner. It won't even be just as your husband by law. It will be because I choose you too. Her breath caught, her golden eyes wide. You choose me? He nodded, a faint smile breaking through his exhaustion. Yes, he whispered. Not the throne, not the crown, just you. The princess bent down, pressing her forehead against his, her tears falling freely. Then before the stars and the moons I vow, she whispered, her voice trembling but clear, I will never let you go, not in life, not in death. From this night onward, you are mine, and I am yours. The human closed his eyes, letting the words wash over him. For the first time since his capture, he felt peace, not chains, not fear, only belonging. Above them, the night sky stretched endlessly. The stars bore witness to a vow that no law, no blade, no enemy could ever break. And as the empire rebuilt, from the ashes of betrayal, songs began to spread. Songs of the golden princess who defied her people, and the human warrior who became her heart beneath the stars.